We are taught from the moment we open our first textbook that history is a ladder. We are told that the story of humanity is a straight, unbroken line rising from the darkness of the primitive past into the fluorescent light of the modern age. We are told that we started as hunter-gatherers, chipping flint in cold caves, and slowly, painstakingly, crawled our way up through the Bronze Age, the Iron Age, and the Industrial Revolution, until we finally arrived here, at the summit. We believe that we are the apex of life on Earth, the first species to tame the atom, the first to map the stars, the first to truly understand the world we live in. But look closer at the timeline. Look closer at the anomalies that do not fit this comfortable narrative. There are cracks in the foundation of our history. There are footprints in the dust of time that are too deep, too complex, and too old to belong to the primitive ancestors we are told about. What if the latter is a lie? What if the trajectory of human civilization is not a straight line, but a heartbeat? A cycle of rising, falling, and beginning again. A rhythm of great ascensions followed by catastrophic silences. We must ask the question that mainstream history is too afraid to whisper. What if we are not the first? What if this, our skyscrapers, our internet, our science, is not a new invention, but a recovery? What if we are merely the latest iteration of a project that has been running for hundreds of thousands of years? And most terrifying of all, if we are the current version of humanity, why do the ruins of the past suggest that the previous versions were superior? Let us strip away the dogma and look at the evidence. Consider the biological anomaly that is the human being. In the grand theater of evolution, nature moves with the speed of a glacier. Species adapt over millions of years, making microscopic adjustments to their environment. A slightly longer beak, a slightly thicker fur, a marginally sharper eye. But the emergence of anatomically modern humans does not fit this pattern. Somewhere between 200 and 300,000 years ago, something happened. A biological lightning strike. In a blink of geological time, a primate species suddenly developed a brain of disproportionate size, a capacity for complex language, abstract thought, and coordinated social engineering. This was not a gradual slope, it was a cliff face. Scientists call it the cognitive leap, but they cannot explain the engine behind it. There is no clear evolutionary pressure that justifies such a massive, energy-consuming upgrade in such a short window. Nature tends towards efficiency, yet the human brain is an energetic luxury that demands 20% of the body's total energy. Why would evolution select for such a demanding trait unless the environment demanded it? Or unless the environment was manipulated? There is a hypothesis that suggests we are not the random result of natural selection, but a reconstructed species. A species assembled or reassembled in the aftermath of a collapse. If you look at the genetic bottlenecks in our history, moments where the human population dropped to merely a few thousand individuals, you have to wonder, were those bottlenecks natural disasters, or were they reset points? Are we the first iteration of Homo sapiens, or are we version 5.0, rebooted after the previous operating system crashed? If we are not the summit of progress, then who stood there before us? The official timeline states that civilization began roughly 6,000 years ago in Sumer and Egypt. Before that, we are told there was only the silence of the nomad. But the Earth itself contradicts this. The Earth is scarred with the fingerprints of a culture that possessed the ambition of gods and the precision of machines thousands of years before we were supposed to have invented the wheel. Look at Göbekli Tepe in modern-day Turkey. We are told it is 12,000 years old. That puts it at the very end of the last ice age. According to the textbooks, the people of that time were simple foragers who had not yet discovered agriculture or pottery. And yet, they carved massive T-shaped pillars of limestone, some weighing up to 50 tons, and arranged them in complex astronomical alignments. They carved three-dimensional reliefs of animals with an artistic skill that rivals the Renaissance. To build Göbekli Tepe required organization, logistics, engineering, and a stable food supply that hunter-gatherers simply did not have. It appears out of nowhere in the archaeological record, fully formed. There is no period of trial and error. There are no clumsy first attempts. This implies that the people who built it did not invent the technology. They brought it with them. They were not a new culture waking up. They were the survivors of an old culture, trying to preserve a memory. And they are not alone. Unroll the maps of the ancient mariners. The Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513, compiles sources that date back to the Library of Alexandria, and perhaps far beyond. It depicts the coastline of Antarctica, but not the icebound fortress we know today. It depicts the Queen Maud Land coast, free of ice, with accurate topographical details of mountain ranges that were not discovered by modern science until we used seismic sounding in the 20th century. Who mapped Antarctica when it was green? Who had the ships to navigate the globe and the trigonometry to chart a continent that has been frozen for at least 6,000 years? This requires us to accept that while our textbooks say we were living in caves, someone else was sailing the world. But the most damning evidence lies in the stone itself. We call our age the age of technology, but we measure our achievements in silicon and steel, materials that degrade, rust, and vanish. The ancients measured their achievements in granite, diorite, and basalt, the hardest substances on the crust of the earth. We find polygonal masonry in Peru, in Egypt, in Turkey, in Japan. Stones weighing hundreds of tons, shaped with compound angles, fitted together so perfectly that not even a razor blade can pass between them. This is not mortar, this is fusion. These walls are not just stacked, they are interlocked in 3 dimensions, making them earthquake-proof. We try to replicate this today. We fail. To cut diorite with such precision requires diamond-tipped saws and computer-guided lathes. To lift blocks of 1,000 tons like those found in Baalbek requires cranes that barely exist in the modern world. Yet we are asked to believe that this was done with copper chisels and stone hammers. Copper cannot cut granite. It is a physical impossibility. The Mohs hardness scale dictates it. Therefore, the builders possessed a technology we have lost. Perhaps it was not a technology of force, but of sonics, sonic technology, geopolymers, methods of softening stone or rendering it weightless. But here is the critical anomaly. The oldest structures are the most advanced. In Egypt, the Great Pyramid and the Osirion are feats of engineering perfection. The later pyramids, built by the pharaohs we know, are crumbling piles of rubble. If civilization evolves linearly, the quality should improve over time. But in the ancient world, the opposite is true. The technology degrades, the knowledge fades, the precision is lost. This is not the signature of a developing civilization. This is the signature of a surviving civilization, a culture living in the ruins of its ancestors, mimicking what it can no longer understand. So what happened? What broke the line of time? Around 12,800 years ago, the Earth changed. The data is preserved in the ice cores of Greenland and the sediment layers of North America. The Younger Dryas Impact event. It wasn't a slow climate shift, it was an apocalypse. A fragmented comet, miles wide, slammed into the ice sheets of the northern hemisphere. The energy released was equivalent to thousands of nuclear bombs. The ice caps vaporized instantly, sending mile-high tsunamis sweeping across the continents. The sea levels rose 400 feet in a geological blink. The temperature plummeted. The sky turned black with ash and smoke for a century. This was the Great Filter. If a civilization like ours existed back then, living on the coastlines, relying on a delicate web of global trade, it would have been wiped out in days. The cities would have been washed into the ocean. The infrastructure would have collapsed. The survivors would have been scattered, traumatized, and thrown back into a struggle for basic survival. In one generation, you lose the internet. In 2 generations, you lose literacy. In 3 generations, history becomes myth. The gods who built the great towers become legends. The machines become magic. And humanity forgets. This leads us to the uncomfortable truth about ourselves. If the ancients were so advanced, if they were taller, stronger, and more capable, as the skeletal remains of the Cro-Magnons and the ancient giants suggest, then what are we? Look at the biological trend. Over the last 20,000 years, the human brain has actually shrunk. We have lost bone density. We are physically weaker than our ancestors. We are more prone to disease. We require more comfort. There is a theory that we are a domesticated version of humanity. Think of the wolf and the dog. The wolf is independent, strong, intelligent in a raw, survivalist way. The dog is smaller, softer, dependent on the master, but highly social and easy to manage. What if the catastrophe didn't just wipe out civilization, but necessitated a change in the hardware of the human being? Perhaps the high-energy, high-intelligent model of the past was too unstable. Perhaps they destroyed themselves. Or perhaps the conditions of the post-apocalyptic Earth could not support them. So we emerged. Humanity 2.0. A version that is physically smaller, consuming less energy. A version that is socially plastic, programmed to obey hierarchies, to work in groups, to follow systems. We are not the creators, we are the worker bees. We are the safe mode of human existence. We pride ourselves on our invention, but look at our progress. Is it true innovation, or is it recollection? When Tesla spoke of energy, he spoke of tapping into the fundamental forces of the Earth, knowledge that seems echoed in the design of the pyramids as power plants. When we explore quantum mechanics, we find ourselves restating the philosophies of the Vedas. We are uncovering the structure of a reality that was already mapped. We are not moving forward into the unknown. We are walking backward through the fog, picking up pieces of a puzzle that was scattered 12,000 years ago. Every new discovery might just be a recovered file from a formatted hard drive. We are rebuilding the tower. We are reconnecting the global brain that once existed. The internet, the global economy, the satellite networks, we are instinctively trying to restore the interconnected system of the Golden Age. But this brings us to the final, haunting question. The question that looms over our future like a shadow. If we are not the first, if there was a version of humanity before us that reached the stars, that mastered the stone, that understood the soul, and if they fell, What mistake did they make? Did they fly too close to the sun? Did they unlock a door that should have remained shut? Or is the cycle of destruction simply inevitable? We look at our ruins and see primitive beginnings. We should be looking at them as warnings. The silence of the megaliths is not an empty silence. It is a held breath. We are walking in the footsteps of giants, wearing shoes that are too small for us. And if we do not remember what happened to the last civilization that stood where we stand now, we are doomed to become just another layer of sediment for the next version of humanity to puzzle over. The cycle is turning. We are remembering. But the question remains, will we survive the memory?